And now it's my pleasure to welcome to the podium Audra Brennan, Director of Strategic Philanthropy at Northwestern Mutual, to introduce today's program.
Good afternoon. I'm happy to have the opportunity to introduce today's speaker and one of my favorite brothers-in-law, Kevin Conroy. Kevin is a native of Flint, Michigan, and grew up the son of a state legislator and a nurse. He graduated with an engineering degree from Michigan State and met my sister-in-law, Sheila, his sister's roommate, at the University of Michigan Law School. Anyone who knows Sheila knows it takes someone pretty impressive to keep up with her. I have to confess it can be a little intimidating to be Kevin's in-law. The same weekend I may celebrate finishing a 5K, he will have run a marathon to raise money for pediatric cancer, or jumped out of a plane to raise money for the United Way. He plays tennis, surfs, travels around the world, all while being an amazing father to 3 incredible girls who are role models for my kids. While I may know him best for his love of family, he is known by many for his entrepreneurial pursuits and his leadership as an employer and a mentor to many. Prior to his role at Exact Sciences, which he will share more about today, he served as president and CEO of Third Wave Technologies, a molecular diagnostics company, where he led the development and commercialization of innovative DNA and RNA analysis products until a successful acquisition in 2008. He also held leadership positions at GE Healthcare. Kevin is also a director of the Greater Madison Chamber of Commerce and serves on the University of Wisconsin-Madison Chancellor's Advisory Council. He has served a number of leading nonprofit and community organizations, including Ronald McDonald House Charities of Madison and Badger Advocates, an organization working to expand support for the University of Wisconsin-Madison at the Wisconsin Capitol. I am pleased to introduce Kevin and have him share his story with you.
That's a wonderful introduction. Thank you, Audra. Well, it was 10 years ago that I had a meeting at the Mayo Clinic that changed my life. I was interviewing for this job as CEO of Exact Sciences, which at the time was pretty much a broken company. There were just a couple of employees in Boston, and they had a bank account, and they had a track record of 3 times trying to develop a colon cancer screening test. And every time it failed clinical trials. And you may ask, why was I interviewing? Well, at the time I was unemployed and I thought I should become employed. And after the first interview, I said, you know, Ed Kenya, who was on the board, and Sally Crawford, I said, Ed and Sally, there's no company here. There's no technology. There's no intellectual property. There's no research and development team. And they said, well, why don't you go and visit Dr. David Ahlquist at the Mayo Clinic? And that's where the story really started. So it was in February of 2009 that we had this discussion at the Mayo Clinic. It's a 3-hour drive from Madison to the Mayo Clinic, and it was a snowy winter day. We got there, and Dave just really made a compelling case that we could solve the problem of colon cancer. We could solve it with a non-invasive test that detected not only cancer, but also the precancerous polyps that turn into cancer. And if you could do that and get everybody screened, you could do for the world what the Pap smear did for cervical cancer. And that was kind of the inspiration. We had just developed a cervical cancer screening test. And I didn't know this before I started on that project, that cervical cancer was the #1 cancer killer of women all the way through the 1950s and into the 1960s. It killed about 40,000 women a year. And today it kills about 4,000 women a year. And that it's the only true cancer eradication story. And it works with a Pap smear, which misses 50% of all of the problems that lead to cervical cancer. Those precursor lesions take 10 years to turn into cancer. So with repeat Pap smears, you find 99% of the precursor lesions. You can ablate that, burn off that tissue, and you actually prevent the disease. So that was the inspiration. And Dr. Ahlquist made a compelling case that we could do the same thing. And in that meeting on that day in February, he showed us data it generated in his lab, which was funded with NIH grants, the ability to detect over 90% of cancers and about 50% of precancers from a stool sample. Hope everybody's about finished with lunch today. And not only did he make the scientific case, but he made the human case for trying to solve this problem. So colon cancer is the #2 cancer killer after lung cancer in this country, killing 50,000 people a year. And if you drew a graph over the last decade, it wouldn't vary plus or minus 500 people. It's been 50,000 people a year for a decade. And 1 in 20 people in this room will be diagnosed with colon cancer if something doesn't change. What we're trying to do is to be that something that changes. Knowing that detecting colon cancer early, 9 out of 10 people survive. Stage 1 colon cancer, 98% 5-year survival rate. If you detect colon cancer stage 4, 10%. 1 in 10 people survive. So the whole idea is to detect early. The problem is colon cancer is not symptomatic, typically stage 1 or 2. So most people today are diagnosed late stage, which is why 50,000 people a year die. Also, by finding and removing precancerous polyps, you actually prevent the disease. That is scientifically established. It takes 10 to 15 years for a precancerous polyp to turn into stage 1 cancer. You don't show up one day with colon cancer. It has been growing from a very small polyp to a significant problem over a long period of time. So if you can find that and remove it, you can actually prevent this disease and do for colon cancer what the Pap smear did for cervical cancer. And that was our goal. And so after that meeting with Dave, I said, and at the time, Manish Arora, who we had worked together at Third Wave Technology, said, let's do this. And we went and rented an office at the University Research Park that was no bigger than this stage, and we shared a desk. And that's how it got started. And we wrote a business plan, and we went about recruiting the team that we needed in order to develop this test. Because one thing, Manish and I were not scientists. As part of that process too, we knew that we needed to run an enormous clinical trial, which to this day is still the largest colon cancer screening trial ever run, funded entirely with private dollars that we had raised into the company. We needed to screen 10,000 people, and to do that, we needed to enroll 90 sites around the country, and we had 18 months to get it done. The folks that we talked to said, look, you just can't run a clinical trial of this size in 18 months. It's probably going to take 4 years. There was an NIH study that started at that same time in 2010. That study is not yet fully enrolled. We finished enrolling in this study in 18 months. And the reason we didn't have any extra time, because we knew the key guideline committee met once every 5 to 8 years. And we were running up against a deadline to get this study published so that the guideline committee could meet. Well, we opened up the results of that clinical trial, and we showed that we could detect 92% of cancers, which is about similar to what colonoscopy detects. There's 94% of curable stage cancers, with a 10% false positive rate in people with no polyps, with a clean colon. So we knew that we had a test. To put this in perspective, mammography detects about 92% of breast cancers, and it has about a 12% false positive rate. So we knew that we had a test that you could complete in the privacy of your own home. And if we could do that, we knew that we had a shot of getting the 35 million Americans that are unscreened screened. And that was the start of it. We called this test Cologuard. You maybe have seen the commercials. one of the things we had to do was get through not only the FDA approval process, it was critical that we get Medicare to cover the test. The challenge is that typically Medicare, that process is a separate process that begins about 3 years after FDA approval, typically with another 10,000 patient study. And it was really remarkable what engaging with the leadership at FDA and Medicare did. They created a new pathway called the parallel review path to allow for the first time in history a medical device or diagnostic to get FDA approval and Medicare coverage on the same day. And not only did we have to innovate new technology and a new test, we also had to work with government to be very innovative, and we're really thankful that they did that. After we began to offer Cologuard to physicians and to people in the screening age between the ages of 50 and 85, one of the things we saw was there are just too many primary care physicians, and you just couldn't get the uptake because we had an 80-person sales force. So we made an audacious decision to spend about $25 million on television advertising, mostly on cable TV, and we made this commercial.
Introducing Cologuard.
I'm here for an important reason. Colon cancer screening. If you're age 50 or older and at average risk, Cologuard finds cancer and precancer. And it's a non-invasive test you can use at home. In fact, I'm as easy as get, go, gone.
Now, I would love to take credit for this commercial, but here's the truth. We were having a meeting, and a team came in and said, we have this great idea for a television commercial. We're going to have a talking box. And I said, have you taken leave of your senses? There's no way. Aren't we supposed to talk about the science? And so they showed the focus group results, and it said, people love this commercial. And we ran with it, and they did love the commercial and the variations on that. And the way that we really look at this is a public health service that is being done now. And we are getting an enormous number of people who otherwise wouldn't get screened to get screened. In fact, this is my favorite slide here, because what it says is that of all of the people who get a Cologuard test, about half of them have never been screened. And their average age is 65, which means they've been in the screening population for a decade and a half. So it is really wonderful to see people who otherwise would blow off screening actually follow through with it. And it also, from a business perspective, provides a tremendous opportunity for growth. Today, we have about 4% market share of the relevant population, age 50 to 85. We think that eventually we will get about 4 in 10 people screened with Cologuard. So we think we could grow by about 10x. Don't go and buy stock based on anything I say today, by the way. And we've had tremendous growth. So all of the plans that we laid out, I can tell you they did not contemplate this scenario of growth. We ended up building our own lab. We built our own sales force. Truth is, we couldn't really find somebody to partner with us because most people did not believe this was doable. And we built our own sales force, so now we get to keep the economics of this and invest it back into research and development. The most important thing is last month we announced that we screened our 2 millionth person. And when you put this in perspective, that means about 10,000 people diagnosed with curable stage colon cancer, which means surgery, stage 1 colon cancer, no chemotherapy. It really changes the rest of your life. And here's the story of a Milwaukeean, Sue.
I've gone through many points in my life where things have not been great, and I've just managed to get through by putting one foot in front of the other.
She worked so hard raising 2 girls and particularly caring for Emily.
Emily was okay until she was almost 2. She stopped talking, and she just started doing all these odd things. The neurologist diagnosed her with Rett syndrome. Anything that you would do for yourself, I do for Emily.
She had a busy life, and she was healthcare averse. We were always encouraging her to get that colonoscopy done. She would say, oh, I don't have time for that.
I always got mammograms though, and the doctor talked about Cologuard. It was the smart thing to do. The Cologuard box, it comes to your house. I mean, it is so easy. And then my doctor called, and he said it came back positive. And then I was afraid. And I had to schedule a colonoscopy. And by golly, I did have cancer. They said it's stage 2, but it had broken through the wall a little bit.
She was shaken, and her first reaction was,
What'll happen to Emily? I had surgery, and then after chemotherapy was done, I had a CT scan that showed everything is fine. Had I not done the Cologuard test, I would not have done anything, and I would have had bad cancer.
I feel very grateful for her great recovery.
It sure made me appreciate life more.
During this, I mean, the impact of what 10 years ago, this meeting with Dave Ahlquist it's been really powerful to see the impact on people. And it's nonstop, the number of people who call us and say, look, this changed my life. And so it's really gratifying. The other thing that is really gratifying has been to see the growth of the company. So when we started with just 2 of us sharing a desk, it grew pretty slowly for a number of years. And then as we got close to FDA approval and we started to build the company, things really took off. And we knew that we had to get out ahead of the volumes that were coming. And so we built a lab, we trained a significant number of people, and we also built a large call center, because a big part of the problem with colon cancer is actually getting people to return the test. And you actually double the return rate of that collection kit if you just gently prompt people by calling them, by texting them, by emailing them and reminding them to return the collection kit. And so we have built this large team of people. That's what they do every day, is to follow up with our customers to make sure that they follow through with the test. And as part of that, this is the old Rayovac building, which was built in the mid-1980s. And we eliminated the entire exterior and we resheathed it in glass. And this building is now off the Beltline in Madison today. And it's fully occupied. In fact, we are officially out of space, and we have 400 job openings, so we have a challenge. This building is being built. It's our new research and development and headquarters building, which is in the University Research Park, and we're excited for that to be completed. Last year, we announced a partnership with Pfizer. So Pfizer has brought an enormous number of salespeople to the effort of bringing education to healthcare providers all across the country. And we're really excited about this partnership and their professionalism and capabilities of educating primary care docs. There are 350,000 primary care docs, and our 350 salespeople out in the field cannot reach them all. It's just too big of a task. As part of building the company, one of the things that we needed was capital. And my role, one of the things that I really focused on was making sure that investors knew this story and that they were willing to invest. And we've had to raise capital 14 different times over the last 10 years. A total now, it's close to $2 billion. And to do that, that was 4,500 investor meetings. So people who are entrepreneurs in the audience and who are raising capital know that it's just, there's no stop to it. You have to keep educating investors along the way. So that is the story of Exact Sciences, and it really did start with that one meeting, and then taking a plan and just working that plan every day. And it's really been a work of joy to get to where we are today. And one of the things that I often think about is how can you replicate this story in Wisconsin? And so every time I give a talk, I try to bring home the importance of economic development in Wisconsin. I moved to Wisconsin to join GE Healthcare. And because my wife Sheila grew up in Wisconsin, and it's an unbelievable place to live. I miss Milwaukee. And if you take a look at our demographics, though, we have challenging demographics. And if demographics are your destiny, what we have here is a rapidly aging population, and we have a net out-migration of college-educated workers. We're 41st of all states in the country in terms of retaining the people that we want, the people who might start businesses, who might become engineers, who might make a big economic impact. And the results of a really important study conducted by the Kauffman Foundation this study has never been done previously, was to look at where do jobs come from in the American economy over 30 years. And what the light purple line shows you is the number of net jobs created from companies 1 year old or younger versus everything else. And what you see is once companies as a group get to be 1 year old, they start shedding jobs as a totality. What this says is you need a huge number of startups to keep the American economic engine going, ultimately lifting people out of poverty, providing economic growth so that you have a higher tax base. The problem in this country is there's been a straight line decline in the number of new companies formed per 1,000 companies, from 108 to 61. So there aren't enough startups that are being created, and the problem in Wisconsin is particularly dire. Now, this isn't a left or a right issue. These are just the facts. We're the 50th in terms of new company formation in this country. This is all Kauffman data. And so what can we do to solve this problem? One of the things that we can do is have greater access to capital. If you look at Minnesota as a proxy, Minnesota has about $2 billion in venture capital under management, and Wisconsin has about $600 million. So this is something that we can do to create funds. Leaders in this room, CEOs of large companies in the state, we could create a fund that would help accelerate growth. Northwestern Mutual and a couple of other companies did that, I think, with about a $100 million fund last year. That's a really great start. We need to do more of that. University of Wisconsin, the system, and UW-Madison are really important pieces of the puzzle. I'm here because I joined a company that was a spinoff of UW-Madison, Third Wave Technologies. We're tremendous. We're 6th in the country, slipping, but 6th in the country at fundamental research. The translation of that research to companies is really low. That's part of the capital problem. And what can we do? What policies can we have that accelerates this so that we have more companies that start and have a big impact on the economy? And we know that another big piece of the puzzle, in addition to access to capital and the UW health system, is worker training. About half of our 400 open jobs today do not require a college degree. If you want to work in our customer contact center, you don't need a high school degree. You need certain skills, though. And it starts at $15 an hour. Everybody is eligible for bonus. Everybody is eligible for equity. Everybody gets a really good healthcare plan. And compensation can keep growing. The person who runs our billing collection team of 50 people doesn't have a college degree, has really, built a career by being excellent at what he does. And we know that we need more people. That's a real challenge. People come to me every day on the team and say, look, we need to open up a customer contact center someplace other than Wisconsin. And I say, it's just not going to happen. Let's figure out a way to bring more people into the company and train them. And so this is really critical, and I'm sorry to go on a rant there, but I think that people in this room can make a difference in terms of the policies that can change to make a difference, so that there aren't 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 exact sciences, but there are dozens, if not hundreds. So thank you very much. I don't know if I have time to answer any questions. I'm happy to. There is a massive amount of money in this country that it funds cancer therapies, which by and large, although it's really important, I don't want to diminish that. By and large, most of those therapies that work, Avastin is a good example, extends the life in colon cancer by 3 months. It costs $15,000, $20,000 a month. Okay, is that the best approach? We made the case that the best approach to human health is early detection. And the way we went after that was to show that these cancer cells slough off, and they have very unique DNA signatures. And if you can find these unique cancer cells that are pretty hard to find in a stool sample, pull them out, detect that DNA alteration, now you can start to move towards disease eradication and saving the whole health system money. It was not an easy sell. Whereas if we had been a drug company with similar scientific proofs, it would have been very easy to raise capital. The test costs $500, and yes, it requires a prescription from your healthcare provider. So either a nurse, a physician assistant, or a doctor. Yes. We have announced, oh yes, so are there other cancers with similar signatures? Most cancers have this A signature because cancer is basically a disease of the DNA. You have a gene whose sole purpose in life is to create a protein that protects against cancer. And if that gene gets turned off, and you can, because of a mutation, you can find that. And that's a signal that you have cancer. And so we're developing a test for liver cancer based on a blood draw. We're working on esophageal cancer. We're working on pancreatic cancer. We're working on breast cancer and lung cancer, all through this partnership with the Mayo Clinic. So it's the top 15 cancers. And as I look over the last 10 years, it's been exciting. But the next 10 years, we think is going to be dramatically more exciting because of the number of new tests. Yes.
I apologize for focusing on the false positives, but if someone gets a false positive, can they be caught by just another Cologuard test, or do they catch it with that?
So the question is, what about the false positive rate? Anybody who gets a positive Cologuard test should go to colonoscopy. That is what's recommended, which is the current screening test. So you can look at it, this eliminates the need for 85 to 90% of all colonoscopies by getting a Cologuard test every 3 years, which is another benefit, is colonoscopy is so expensive that the system really can't afford to do it more than every 10 years. And so Cologuard every 5 years at $500 makes an immense amount of sense. Yes?
Yeah, it sounds like you got a good break early on in the project, a policy change with FDA and Medicaid. How did your team do that so you make it happen?
It was our first month at work where we realized we had a big problem because we knew we couldn't afford to do 2 big clinical trials. So we went and sat down with Medicare, and we said, here's our problem, we can't even get started. And they said, you know, we've been thinking about doing parallel review for 10 years. Would you be willing to do this? And we immediately said yes, and it went from there. So it's just a good example of go and talk to the regulators. If you're in a regulated industry, we just sat down and talked to them, and they wanted to help us solve the problem. So the question was a detailed discussion of exactly how do you do this test. There are no dietary restrictions with Cologuard. So, you know, a sports section and 5 minutes. There's actually a collection device, and you provide the sample and you pour a DNA preservative over the sample and you ship it to Madison, Wisconsin. Yes. So I think the question is really, how do you get out and educate physicians? And it's hard because changing the practice of medicine is really difficult. Colonoscopy is the perceived gold standard, even though the guidelines actually don't call it the gold standard. It is perceived as the gold standard among primary care physicians, with good reason. It's a really good test. Problem is half of people just won't do it. So you need to go and, with a sales force, not go and talk to a doctor once. Literally, you have to talk to that doctor dozens of times and bring papers and show them the evidence and really engage in a discussion and provide courses and educate consumers who will do their own research and go and ask their physician. And that was a big insight. Nobody had ever advertised on TV in a major way for a diagnostic test. We're now up to about $120 million annually of direct-to-consumer advertising. And again, we look at that really as this is a public health problem, a solvable one that can be solved with education.
What percent of your customers are U.S. customers versus Mexico, Canada, Japan, Europe?
Question is, what percentage of our customers are U.S. customers? 100%. Believe it or not, most countries don't have formal colon cancer screening programs. Even in Europe, the colon cancer incidence rate is 2x of that in the US because, by and large, there is not effective screening programs through most of Europe. Yes? Yes.
If you're having trouble filling your jobs in Madison, have you ever thought about opening a call center here in Milwaukee? I think we probably could, mayor could accommodate.
We could help you.
I know the best mayor in America. He's right here, so maybe we need to have a talk afterwards. One more question, and then I should, yes. So the question is about the cutting of research. The fundamental research in this country, especially in life sciences, is critically important. Life sciences is still a segment of the economy where America is unquestionably the #1 leader. And China is making massive investments, not only in the research, but in graduating scientists and engineers. So there's an opportunity. The reason that we are in Madison, Wisconsin is because the biochemistry program at University of Wisconsin is in the top 5 in the world. And we knew there was an unlimited supply of really good PhD scientists that we needed to develop this test and the right ecosystem. We need to invest not only in the research, but now we need to invest in that ecosystem. And we think that's really, really important. So we hope everybody advocates. That is not a left or a right policy. That is just common sense. If you have a strength, press on the accelerator and go for it. So should I wrap it up? One more question. Yes, sir. Well, I actually joined the company 10 years ago yesterday. And bizarrely enough, the company was already public at the time. It was a $30 million market cap with $30 million in the bank. and trading at 83 cents. And so I'm not sure what the stock price is right now. I think it is just right around $90. And it has, it's been a long road to get there. I thank you so much for the time and appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you, Kevin, for sharing the ColorGuard story and for giving us some insight into the challenges and opportunities of entrepreneurial investment in Wisconsin. Rotary International is a global leader in the effort to eradicate polio, and we're at 99.9% on our way to a polio-free world. As a small gesture of our appreciation for your being with us here today, we'll make a donation to the Rotary International Foundation to purchase 50 doses of the polio vaccine. And that will take us one step closer to our goal. So thank you for being here. And I'm also delighted to say that one of our members anonymously offered to match the club donation for polio eradication, so that this week we will purchase 100 doses of the vaccine. Many thanks to the generosity of our anonymous member. Thank you.